Welcome to Monkeys Unfiltered, the podcast where chaos meets conversation, and the unexpected is always on the menu. Join hosts Leanne, Jason, and Hayden as they swing through life's absurd, hilarious, and thought-provoking moments. No topic is too wild, no opinion is too untamed. Get ready for unfiltered banter, laughs, and a barrel of fun. This is Monkeys Unfiltered.
Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Monkeys Unfiltered podcast. I'm Hayden, the youngest monkey, and I'm here with my mom and my brother, the other two monkeys, and today we're just shooting the shit, talking, whatever comes up, comes up.
Don't we shoot the shit every day? Most days?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. That's kind of why we started this whole thing, right?
Right?
Wait, I thought monkeys flung their shit at each other.
Yeah, well, they're advanced now. We're just advanced monkeys, right?
That's not the topic for today. We will not be talking about monkeys flinging poo. I'm not discussing monkeys flinging poo.
So it's been about a week-ish, maybe a little bit more since we've last all got together like this. What's new? Anything crazy happening?
I don't have new stuff.
Jason?
I told you last night I was ill prepared for this, and I meant it. Like, I've got nothing.
I also have nothing. I do this job thing every day, it feels like.
You have a job?
Yeah.
What kind of job do you do? Tell us about your job, Hayden.
Well, I think we all pretty much work full time, and this is kind of like a side thing for us, but
Okay, so I posed the question to you all about your previous jobs and what you may have learned from it and how you ended up where you are now. Does anyone have anything to share?
Well, being the youngest one here, I probably have the least amount of job history, but we can run through it. I basically started working at 16. My first job was in a very well-known fast food restaurant with a couple of arches out front. It was not fun. I don't recommend it for anyone. But being there, I don't know, it taught me a little bit of a sense of pride in my work because standards there can be so low sometimes, you know. But I've pretty much only worked in a kitchen up until my current job now.
So is that the illusion of pride in your work because the standards were so low that whatever effort you put in was already like above board?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it just it more so taught me like what to try to avoid, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you that type of work is the one thing, that fast food work is the one thing that I promised myself I would never do. And nothing against anyone who's ever done that work. I just knew that that's not something I wanted to be a part of. I've worked plenty of food service, just never that.
What was your first job?
I actually worked for a car wash at a Honda dealership.
Sounds fun. Did you get wet and wild? Stand out there with your top off, spinning signs.
It actually was. It actually was fun, believe it or not. I met some kind of fun people there. Maybe too fun. Mm-hmm. Like to have a little bit too much fun at work instead of actually working.
Yeah, more like
and so
group kind of deal.
Yeah, pretty much. I got into a lot of mischievous things off the clock with those people. Not anything too over the top, but the job itself was fun. I inhaled way too many chemicals every day. I continuously would turn out more work than was actually quote unquote possible within the day. So each car that we were to do was like an hour's quote unquote worth of work. I'd consistently turn in like 12 cars in 6 hours,
Wow.
something like that. So I was pretty good at it. But from there, I learned what good work ethic is, right? And then what it's not also. So looking back on it now, I can kind of determine I was either good at the job at this point or I was bad at the job at this point. And I continuously, even now, look back on my experience there and compare it to what I'm doing now and realize that I didn't take things as seriously then as I do now.
No.
But anyway, I mean, that was, I don't know, 2011, maybe 2010 when I started. I didn't start working till I was 18 years old. And then from there, I went to work at a hotel in their bistro cafe. I did that for a short time. Did food service there, actually. I worked for an online t-shirt company for a little while. We did comic conventions and stuff. Interestingly enough, that job is how I met my wife. Hated it immensely. However, it was a stepping stone to greater things. Then I moved to Alabama, worked for an inventory company. I learned a pretty good deal there. I learned how to be a manager for the first time. I was a crew leader in that job. From there, I worked Domino's part-time while I was still there. I met a guy who worked for a very popular beverage company, and I now work for them.
So your job's basically taken you pretty much from your home to where you are now, but you've been creating a whole new life out there in Alabama.
Yeah, there's been a lot of experiences along the way, like way too many to even detail. Plus, my brain doesn't work very well, so I don't have a whole lot in the memory banks as far as that goes. But yeah, ultimately, it led me to where I am, and I'm wholly satisfied with my life at current.
Nice. Do you remember your first job, Mom? No.
That was a long time ago.
How old were you? Do you know?
Okay, that's not true. I do remember my first job. I think I was 14 because my mom had to sign a waiver, parental permission to work something. I don't even remember what it was called because that was like 50 years ago. Well, not that many, but it was a long time ago. 40 years ago. It was 40 years ago. And I worked at Wendy's. I worked the drive-through. Mm-hmm.
So we're similar in our first jobs of being fast food.
Yep. And then that didn't last very long.
No.
But I only went to work because I wanted to buy a pair of jeans that my mom wouldn't buy for me. So she said I could have them if I had my own money. So I got a job.
I'll show you.
Right. So I got a job. I mean, but it didn't last long. And then I got married right out of high school and had a baby. So I worked. I just didn't get paid for it. But really, I think my working career started, I went to cosmetology school and I became a professional hair person, beauty professional, cosmetologist, beautician, beauty servicer. There's all kinds of names.
Yeah. You did that most of my childhood, I feel like.
17 years. And I worked up from where I worked on straight commission and took every client that walked through the door because I was trying to make a paycheck, including the people who smelled funny, had weird haircuts, didn't know you were supposed to tip your hairdresser. For those of you who don't know that, if they're not the owner, you should tip your hairdresser. But I pretty quickly progressed from there to where I had a decent clientele. So I moved into a bigger, nicer salon where I rented my space, which is really popular now. And then I eventually went on to own my own place. I loved what I did. This is not a knock on professional hairdressers, but I don't love the bullshit that was part of the culture back then in the 90s,
A lot of gossip and drama, yeah.
Early 2000s. Yeah. And it was a point in my life where I had done okay enough that I wanted to be able to come home. And Hayden, you were small. Jason, you were working your way out of high school. But I was able to take some time off and be at home with you guys. And if I remember correctly, one of you one day said to me I needed to go find something to do because I was bugging you. Because I'm writing love notes in your lunch boxes or something, or showing up at too many ball practices or whatever. Can you please go find something to do? So I went back.
Sounds a lot like Hayden, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Well,
sure.
I'm not pointing any fingers, but that's when I went back to school. And we wound up going to school together, Jason.
Yes, we did.
Yep. And then
People were confused as
anytime, and we were studying the same course. And so every time you'd start a new class, a new semester, and you got to go around the room and introduce yourself, what's your major and what's a interesting fact, we would always either sit next to each other or one in front of the other. And our interesting fact would be, that's my mom or that's my kid.
Interestingly enough, I remember in DePlato's class on the Supreme Court, we did the introduction thing, and you said something like, my interesting fact is my son is in this room. And then we just let people sit with that for a while.
Right. But anybody who knows us in person, knows us like a real, understands why it did not take long for everyone to figure out who was related. Jason looks so much like me that one year for Halloween, we dressed up as one another. That was kind of cool. Do you remember that?
I don't.
So on that note, you've said this a lot. I still hold to the fact that we didn't go as each other. You went as me. I don't think I ever went as you.
I'm pretty sure you wore that blue frocky dress.
Blue.
Blue.
I don't think I ever wore a dress in my entire life, in fact.
Okay, we'll act like you didn't wear a dress. But during the course,
we can act like it, but we can also just know it.
Well, we're gonna act like it. But during the course of my studies, I got an opportunity to work on Capitol Hill in DC. So packed up my stuff for what was supposed to be a 90-day internship on the Hill and wound up staying 3.5 years. Fell into
It's quite a leap.
Yeah. Well, and I worked on the Hill for a while, decided I was just not that important, just didn't want to be that pissed off every day, and really didn't want to have that intimate understanding of how U.S. government actually works. And so So I accidentally fell into nonprofit development, which is a big fancy word for I became a fundraiser for charitable causes. And I did that.
There's worse things to do.
Yeah. No, I love doing that. I'm only going to work for a cause that I believe in, but my journey home from DC back to the state of Florida was made possible through a rather large and well-known vet-based organization that is headquartered in Jacksonville. Loved what I did. I then worked for a local program that helped children, inner city children or children from more impoverished regions of the county for after-school care. What do you call it? Tutoring. That's extended day, that sort of stuff. Yeah, out-of-time school programming. Then I moved into supporting those folks who are dealing with an active and living with breast cancer diagnosis and what the havoc that wreaks in your life. And, now I work for myself, twiddling my thumbs and getting on the microphone with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, clearly you've got nothing better to do than just sit here and record podcasts all day.
Nothing. So the truth of the matter is I've not really had a job I disliked. I've worked with people I disliked.
I feel the same.
Yeah. What I've learned about myself through my working career is, as flexible as I have learned to be through the course of my life, and as much as I have leaned into the idea of extending people grace and being non-judgmental and meeting people where they are, I still have a real ingrained sense of what my brain tells me is right and wrong based on the values that I have in my life. And that has caused strife on more than one occasion with, people in the upper, doing what I did. I was considered leadership, upper management, C-level, however you want to term that. But, I'm not, I don't want to say I'm not a yes person, but I'll go along with the flow until something goes against my core values. And so there's been a couple occasions where I parted ways with a job that I love because it rubbed my values wrong.
I feel like that's the biggest thing. Like, people always complain about, oh, I hate my job. But it's like, do you hate your job or do you hate the people at your job? Because, like, I've had a couple managers that have really rubbed me the wrong way, Like, one of my first managers at my current job, I worked for him for close to 3 years, and I don't think we ever really got along that whole time. And it pushed me to the point of, like, I'm either gonna quit or I'm gonna transfer stores or at departments. Like, I can't with this guy anymore,
Right. Well, I mean, and I think that is, so I can think of two incidences where I ultimately separated from a job as a result of my direct supervisor's actions. One was the whole organization went down based on some decisions that were made and we all lost our jobs. And the second one was I separated because I disagreed with some fundamental spending policies within this organization. And when you work in nonprofit, I feel like you have especially when you are the face that is out asking people to invest and donate and give of their time and their resources, and asking corporations to put their name, behind your cause. I feel like you have just you have like 110% obligation to be as transparent as possible with those supporters and donors as to where those dollars are going. And so sometimes when I feel like the waters in that area get muddy, I'm the one who's going to speak up and say, I don't think this is accurate. I don't think we're given a fair report. I don't think we're doing what people think we are doing. And not that there's anything wrong with what we're doing. We just need to communicate it differently. And when I separated from that job, the first one, my supervisor in that position, fine, great. I got along with her. I mean, we certainly were not going to be BFFs, but we had a friendly relationship until things started to really go in the toilet. And then the second job that I had this kind of moral separation from, that one was kind of painful and it hurt for a really long time because I did like the team that I worked with. I did like the people that I worked with. We got along. We were friendly. We saw each other outside of work. But there was just this one thing that I couldn't find my way clear to just go along with. The rest of the team was able to do that within themselves. I couldn't do it. And we separated ways. And that was that hit me really hard. And I was not depressed is not the right word, but it was like, I think I went through a period of mourning, over separating from that job and just feeling like I had lost something that I cared greatly about.
Well, I mean, like, I know you really liked that job and you liked what you did there, and you got to do some cool stuff. I remember coming to your office a couple of times, and doing different events and stuff like that. So I could understand, like, it's like losing a big part, you know?
So I did not make a killing doing inventory. So for those that don't know, retail inventory is taking stock of everything inside a building. So for example, in a C store, aka convenience store or grocery store or something of that nature, you have people that come in and will take account. They will look at the different products on the shelf and they'll take stock of all of it. They're classified into different categories and price points and things like that. And you take account of everything in the store and you add it all up. You then take that number and reconcile it against what their book number is. So I'm looking at physical inventory and inventory on paper, right? So like what the store should have versus what it actually has. And I'm supposed to point out where the shortages are. I did that for quite a while. I think close to 3 years. I really enjoyed that job. I traveled very far, upwards of 1,000 miles a week. I did everything from Montgomery, Alabama to the Tennessee state line, sometimes crossed over into Louisiana. Each store was on a different timetable. So certain stores would have 90-day audits, certain stores would have 60 days and 30 days, depending on how significant the losses were, or, the shortages, so to speak. Didn't necessarily have to be losses, but and all that was gauged on the performance of the store, how frequently they needed it based on how much inventory came in, what their supposed theft levels were, et cetera, et cetera. They had all kinds of different criteria for setting those timetables. So yeah, I did basically the entire northern part of the state of Alabama, and we did every convenience store in a specific company's umbrella. I will neglect to say which company, but so I did that for a while. I was a crew leader there. I would lead crews of up to 5 people, including myself. And I would kind of just coordinate everybody. We tackle the whole store. Generally, it was just me and one other person. We tackle the whole store, count everything up, and then I'd reconcile all the books, present the information to the store managers and the market managers, and we'd finalize the numbers, do recounts if we needed to. And I loved that job a lot. The travel didn't bother me too much. Sometimes I had to stay out of town. That didn't bother me either.
Bothered your wife.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It didn't sit well with her. But
I don't blame her. I would want you to come home too.
I think my wife would never let me stay out of town to do something. Like, I had an interview one time for a job, and they were like, "Oh, if you get the job, you have to go and train for 2 weeks in a different city." And my wife was like, "Hey, let's look at a different one."
But the company would, provide hotels, whatever, if that was necessary. They'd give us per diem. However, I worked for a company that didn't start out giving any fringe benefits. Like, I had no health coverage, I had no paid vacation, I had nothing of the sort. And it was difficult to coordinate like travel for holidays or anything like that. Just made everything more complicated. So, I mean, there were things that I loved about the job, things I didn't care so much for, but nevertheless, I think I learned a good discipline at that job, because I had to be on site at whatever store I was going to be at 5 or 5:30 in the morning. And that's no matter if it's 3 hours away or 30 minutes down the road. And so I kind of got the discipline of being able to, know when I needed to go to sleep in order to get a good rest, and then wake up and get ready, drive there, et cetera, et cetera. So I learned some pretty good discipline from doing that. I learned how to manage.
I also think that job is probably where you learned the art of how do you say this? Like, we talk about this a lot, but when to speak up and when not to speak up, especially as you're just coming into your career and you're learning your skills and you're learning to be a manager. I really feel like that job is where you learned to, like I just said, go with the flow a little bit, but, understand where the actual important things are, like what to go to the mat about and what to just kind of let go. Because I know you struggled a lot with some stuff there, and I was immensely proud of the way you handled yourself in several situations.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all. I worked in hotels before I did this job, and I used to get wildly upset about pretty much everything I didn't feel like was right. And I made my voice known on several occasions, whether it involved me or not. And so I had some really difficult things to overcome as far as being opinionated and realizing, I'm not in management. Therefore, even though I have something to say, it doesn't necessarily mean I should say it. You're right. That inventory job is probably where I learned that biggest lesson. And as I said too, it's where I learned to manage. I was probably 3 months on the job before I was promoted to crew leader. And that really just means I just kind of coordinated everybody. It didn't necessarily mean I was anyone's boss per se. And I was perfectly fine with that. My whole career up to that point, my whole working life was trying to be the boss of someone. And by the time I actually got put into that role, I could have cared less if I was actually in charge. I enjoyed being the facilitator, right? Because I think that, and this is going to sound a little messed up, but I think that there's not a whole lot of people, especially in that role, who could have done it the way I did. I just feel like my integrity was on another level. I'd heard people talking all the time about, just throw a number in there, or, they're not going to know, or something of that nature. And I just didn't approach things that way.
Well, and I would say too, because Hayden made a reference about his work ethic too, and I by no means am taking, props for what you guys have internalized and built into your person, but you guys didn't get a lot of slack at home either. Like you do it right. And if it's wrong the first time, you go back and do it the second time and the third time and the fourth time until your mama's satisfied. So you guys, you had the groundwork to step into, I feel like, being that, not to diss on anybody else, but to be that cut above and that less likely to be that person who's going to cut the corners or take the easy route out. I think it's just part of both of y'all's makeup.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree.
Wasn't it? I think it was either Elon or Bill Gates, one of the billionaires like that. They were like, hire lazy people because they find the most efficient way to do stuff.
I feel like that was
That
Elon.
sounds like Elon.
I feel like it was Elon.
It seems like a thing he would say.
Yeah, but I definitely think both of you have that desire to want to do it right. And I'm going to knock on y'all a little bit, not because you want to do it right, but because you don't want to be told to do it again. You don't want to do it again, so just do it right the first time.
Oh, I 100%, like, that factored into a lot of my decision making. It's like, here's the deal. So you've heard the adage, if you don't lie, you don't have to remember anything.
Right.
It's the same thing. If you do it right the first time, whenever you go back to do it, you don't have to remember what corners you cut. You just do it the way you should.
Right.
Everything's going to work out.
But do you guys agree that when you go into something like that, when you work on a team and you see other people who maybe don't have that same idea in their mind, that it just really pisses you off?
Yeah.
I deal with that right now.
I mean, I work on a team of people that run a whole fresh department, like, of things that go bad in 4 or 5 days. And it really pisses me off when other people aren't picking up the slack. And it's like, it's not that hard, man. I shouldn't have to work 2 jobs.
Yeah, Hayden, I work in a situation where rotation is important as well. And I see the amount of stuff that gets credited back, and it just blows me away because all it took was someone putting forth a little bit of effort.
Yep.
Right, because nothing chaps me better than when I come home from your employer, Hayden, and go, really? And then have to turn around and go back because something is not as it should have been.
So, yeah, getting back to my story, I do think that job really gave me the sense of, like you said, Mom, keep your mouth closed. Like, there's things that don't need to be said, no matter how strong your opinions are. I really loved that job a lot. I got along well with all my store managers, all the market managers. It really would be to the point where if I actually took any time off, when I would return to those stores, whether it be the 3 months, 2 months, or a month later, um, whenever I would return to those stores, they'd go, "Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here. The people like last time just really messed us up, and I knew it wasn't right, and I couldn't fight it." And I was like, "Look, don't worry. Like, I'm here now. It's gonna look weird the next time, but we'll get you back squared
Right.
away." As a matter of fact, from that job, I still have. There is a market manager from one of the smaller companies we worked with who still will see me on my current job and continuously offer me a job with them.
Aw.
Because, yeah, I and that's the thing, man. Like, if you have a good work ethic and you take what you do seriously, no matter what it is, right? If you're a trash man, be the best one. If you do, I don't know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Like, just be the best, whatever you do,
Right.
and people notice, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and everybody wants to be appreciated for their efforts, and everybody wants to hear, hey, you did a great job. Hey, we appreciate your contribution. But I guess really at the end of the day, I want to know that I did the very best that I could do. And you're right. There are, you learn things in jobs that make you, they kind of, it helps steer you in. If you're listening, if you're paying attention, it can really guide you into making the right decisions. It's much why I dropped my pursuit to go to law school and to be in politics and to live that whole Washington, D.C. lifestyle. I mean, I got the opportunity to lobby and work on Capitol Hill and be exposed to some just amazing people and some amazing things. But I also, I'm going to reference it like Wizard of Oz, saw behind the curtain, so to speak. And it just wasn't for me. I mean, I'm glad there are people who feel that calling and go and, want to make their mark on it and do the best they can do for their people. It just wasn't me, because I know that I am not capable of bending, stretching, doing the things necessary to function in that situation. So, but I'm grateful for the experience because it led me into having contacts that I could lean into later, having a more self-identified awareness of how I wanted to be in a situation, which I guess is why I fell into nonprofit, because that's what I do. I help, or I try to.
Yeah.
Look, I agree with you on that peeking behind the curtain type of thing. There is so much, and Hayden, you can attest to this, so much waste in the food industry.
God.
It is unbelievable, right? So my best friend works for a very popular chip company, and he tells me about how many thousands of dollars just on his route of product that he throws out every day. And it just boggles my mind because it costs more to ship it back to the warehouse than it does to just toss it. And that's ridiculous to me. Like, surely there should be, I don't know, some sort of nonprofit in place or something to, hey, we'll take that. Like, there's better things we could do. So many people are starving in the world. There's no reason to just be throwing stuff out like that. Now, Hayden, you were talking about like rotten fruit earlier. That's a little bit different. But.
Yeah, so my company actually, they participate in stuff like that. So not from my department, because it's a fresh department. It's a little harder because things go bad so quickly. But like either in meat or the bakery, if they have like say ground beef that goes bad in 2 days, so we pull anything that's current date and the next date. If they have something that's the next day, they'll donate it or like with the bread in the bakery or something like that, or any cakes, sweets, that kind of stuff. We donate it, and then that next morning somebody comes and picks it up and takes it to a food bank, and it's distributed by the end of that day.
Yeah. I mean, and that's that there are a lot of organizations that do that. And there are nonprofits like in the human services division that form these partnerships with larger corporations. It baffles my mind that the company that you're speaking about, Jason, doesn't actively participate in that kind of programming. And maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just a breakdown internally or somebody not completely understanding. But I would like to think that the bigger companies in the world try to do the right thing, but that's because I like to think the best of people.
Well, I'm sure there's some degree of like corporate
Right.
whatever. Like I'm sure there's a plan in place, but as far as the individual level, and honestly, this is where a lot of the, I hesitate to call it issues, but where a lot of this stuff happens that like people aren't even aware of in the
Right.
general sense. So at that level, you're able to kind of make executive decisions, or like we were talking about earlier, if you're not putting forth your full effort, then you're costing the company money. And now to the average person, that doesn't matter because corporations are, wildly rich. There's no reason to, go above and beyond. But for me, it's not about the money of it all. It's about just doing the best job because they hired me to do that, right? And I don't look at it like, well, they're already billionaires, I don't need to do anything extra. I look at it that like that's my personal responsibility as far as my job's concerned. And if I'm not putting forth my best foot forward rather, I don't deserve to make the paycheck that they offered me in the first place because they hired me to do the best work I'm capable of.
No.
Right.
So we're kind of getting close to time here, but I guess as like a final question, out of all the jobs that we've worked, what would you say is like if you could do this one for the rest of your life, like this was your favorite job, whether it be the people you were working with or just the job that you actually do, which one would you choose?
So it's hard for me to pick just one because there's aspects from every job that I've had that I found enjoyable. Now, anyone who's ever had a job knows that there is no place you could ever work where you're 100% satisfied 100% of the time. But for me, my current job, merchandising for the beverage company, is my favorite thing I've ever done. I have literally never had an experience that just made me say, F it, I don't want to come back here. Or, I don't wake up in the morning going, oh my God, I have to go to work. I go, oh man, I get to go to work today. And a lot of people don't get to have that. And so the fact that I do, I relish that. So I'm very in love with the job I currently do.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't think it's like one particular job. I mean, there's been working in nonprofit, there was one particular cause that I really got deep into and really have a heart for, and I've stayed connected to. Clearly, I've done nonprofit work for some organizations that have some amazing fringe benefits. The events and the participation and visiting different locations and the people you get to interact with. And so that's a big perk that I no longer engage in, because now, I work for myself and I do what I love doing the most. Because if you look at even when I worked even when I had my hair salon, working in nonprofit, and what I do now, the core of what makes me the happiest is helping someone else, whether it's overcoming a challenge or finding a way from point A to point B, or scaling, their business for them, or helping them decipher, what a marketing report actually means to them. So I do what I love every day. I've just been very fortunate that I've had a career path that has put me in situations where I was able to engage with that that part of my person that really needs to be fed every day. That ability to help people.
Yeah. So basically, any of your jobs you'd love to do.
I would love to do any of my jobs. Not keen on
Some of the people you did them with.
right. Yeah.
I think that applies to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I were to answer the question, my favorite job that I ever did probably isn't the one I do now. I mean, I love what I do, but there's so much downtime where I am right now. It can be boring at times, and I work by myself most of the time, and it's not bad. I love the job, but my job before this one was my last job in the restaurant industry. I guess it was my second to last because I had a short little stint with one of my wife's family friends. But I worked and I became a kitchen manager there, and I loved the crew we had. There was never a day I walked in and was like, oh God, I gotta go to work today. This sucks. It was like, oh, I can go in, it's gonna be a fun day no matter how busy we are.
Right.
And it was cooking, and I enjoy cooking a lot. So
I enjoy it when you cook too.
I didn't have a bad day there. I mean, there were days where like, oh, that was tough, but I never had a bad day. So
yeah.
So
I think it's,
it can be the people you work with sometimes too that make the job.
Oh, I definitely think the people you work with either tilt you to the left or to the right, good or bad, or, however you want to term that. The people you work with either make it bearable or just make it not worth the effort, regardless of how you feel about what you do. Because if you love what you do and the people make it unbearable, you'll just move on and do what you love to do someplace else.
Yeah. So,
but
I got one final thing for you. It's nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing too heavy. Did you know that Froot Loops are all the same flavor despite being different colors?
I did know that. It's the same thing with Skittles.
Skittles are not the same flavor. If you look on the back of a Skittles bag, it has the flavors of each individual color, but all Froot Loops are the same color. Okay, then that might
be one of those myths.
Yeah. All Froot Loops are the same flavor.
I guess it may. I don't know. You put them all in your mouth at the same time. How the hell would you tell the difference? I mean, it's not like you go through and pick out all the green ones and then all the red ones. I mean, unless you're OCD or something. And, if you happen to do that, more power to you. But
you would think they're Froot Loops, and there's so many different colors, you'd think they represent different fruits, right? But they don't. They're all just fruity flavored. Well,
that makes perfect sense. Thanks for sharing that. I love it when Hayden starts a sentence with, did you know?
Hey, I'm full of stupid facts, man.
Well, you're full of something for sure. All righty then. Well, this has been enjoyable, gentlemen.
Yeah. So I just want to say thanks for joining us on another episode of the Monkeys Unfiltered podcast. Be sure to follow us on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Monkeys Unfiltered, and you can get the podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast, whether that be Apple, Spotify, Amazon. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Monkeys Unfiltered. If you enjoyed our jungle of ideas, hit the subscribe button for more untamed conversations. Stay curious and keep it unfiltered. This is Mama Monkey Leanne signing off until next time.
Hello. Welcome to episode 3 of the Monkeys Unfiltered podcast. I'm Hayden, the youngest monkey. I'm here with my mother and my brother. And today we're just shooting the shit.
Don't we do that every day?
I mean,
I'm
pretty
sorry,
much,
I'm laughing at
but-
your fabulous nose whistle, Mom.
I nose whistled?
Yes.
Okay,
a
can
lot.
we need to start again then? And I'm gonna hold my
Well,
nose.
he can cut your audio out.